Welcome to a very special Wednesday with myself, Andrew, and who's that across from me? Is it the Matt Brevner? The
Good morning. It's a throwback.
Yes, it is. We're here. Well, we're not here actually. I'm in my home studio. I made the mistake of doing exercise. Matt Brevner hurt my back a little bit, so
Oh
I'm
no.
yeah, it's a mistake is never exercise, I think is the lesson we're getting here. Never play baseball when you haven't played it in a couple of years. But how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing well. The coffee is hot. The tea is hot. Looking at today's news too, and I'm excited to be
Hmm,
here with you today. It's been a little while since we've done this, Andrew. A few
for
months
sure.
anyway.
It's
So yeah, this is good.
For sure. And we've got lots to get to today from Canada, Justin Trudeau. So many wonderful stories. Every time we have stories about Justin Trudeau, they're wonderful, they're loving, they're caring, just making our country a better place. So let's get into it. We are rebelnews.com/live streams for your daily live streams. And of course, you can interact with us through the paid chats on Rumble, Rumble Rants, and Odyssey on Hyperchat, or you can try to chat with everybody in the unpaid chat on YouTube because they hate us there and we are demonetized on YouTube. So you can't interact with us that way, but we will read any questions, comments, or concerns on air. Comments about my hair, comments about what type of tea Brevner's drinking, questions about his music, questions about, you know, anything you want, really. And we will get to those. So the first story is Justin Trudeau, of course. We want to pull this one up. He's been the master, I think, in the entire Western world, and maybe now the entire world, of keeping things locked down and just a little bit of a shade into communism. Trudeau, as the National Post says, one of the only Western leaders to mandate masks on trains, spotted maskless on a train. Now, Brevner, I want to hear what you have to say about this, but we should be clear, as the National Post states, that it wasn't on a federally regulated train. It was on some sort of steam engine in BC. Are you familiar with this?
I'm not familiar with the steam engine, but I mean it's funny to see Trudeau. Obviously, he's just tanking in the approval polls in BC, so he's out here trying to, show face with his brand new haircut. And it's a little bit tone deaf. I think it's funny that the National Post is covering it because they're probably like, oh man, I can't believe this guy had the gaff to be on a train without wearing a mask after he's been pushing so hard for it. So we better write about it before Rebel does. So that's how I
Exactly.
kind of felt reading this National Post story. Like he's getting so ridiculous that even the people he's paying for can't cover him anymore. And I think this is a perfect example of that. With a baby,
Well,
I love that photo
oh,
too. He's like
you
the,
got to
the
have a
baby is
baby.
like mouth open. It's like like when a mother bird feeds a little bird. Like look at
That's
that
not
little
even a
baby's
baby.
mouth
That's like a
directly.
4-year-old.
Well, that 4-year-old is out on something, but yeah, that can't be safe.
No, it's on federal trains like via rail. It's unsafe to be traveling without a mask. On a regular train, perhaps a steam engine train from the 1700s, it's safer, because the steam dissipates all the toxins in the air. So you can get up close and personal. I'm making that up, obviously, for anybody who doesn't realize. You can get up close and personal with people and hug them, and it's not unsafe, of course. And we know how the virus works. That's why I've got my Tim Biebs behind me. Where is it? Right here. Because we're celebrating Justin Bieber and his partnership with the vaccine side effect. I don't even want to say it. Producer Efron was like, "Why don't you mention?" But like, poor Justin Bieber. They took
uh,
Justin Bieber away from us, you guys, and now Tim Hortons. This is in honor of Justin Bieber, not Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons took Justin Bieber away from us. Justin Trudeau took Justin Bieber away from us, and now Tim Hortons takes camp away from children. So just so everybody knows, I'm honoring the Biebs, not the Tim part of it. And everybody's saying, Matt Brevner, about how Justin Trudeau looks like Lloyd from Dumb and Dumber, played by Jim Carrey. That was the most obvious thing. Now, this guy's got $3,500 a pop for his photographer, but apparently he's going to Supercuts on the weekends. I don't know. Did he? Do you think he took an actual just bowl and just shaved around it? Is this one comment I saw was he's trying to not look like Justin. He's trying to look less like Fidel Castro, and that was and maybe we should play into this a little bit, Matt. This is right around the time our Justin Castro T-shirt has been flying off the shelves.
hmm.
Somebody mentioned in a meeting the other day that it's flying off the Rebel News store right now. So maybe he saw that and he's in a rage at 2 a.m. He's like, I don't look like Castro, and he's shaving his head with a bowl on top of it. And they're like, no, Justin, please stop. There it is.
It seems to me like maybe he's trying to recapture a little bit of that youthful glow that got him elected the first time. At now 50, he's like struggling to look young. I don't know. It's maybe this is like a pre-election campaigning haircut. That was the vibe I kind of got. Maybe there'll be a snap election, but yeah, the resemblance is terrifying.
Yeah, this is a deep fake of his face on it. It worked pretty well. Oh man, that's truly disturbing. Now, yeah,
I
that's a
thought it's
classic
just the
scene.
language in this article. The language in this article I thought was really funny too. And like the second paragraph, it talks about how even though this isn't a federally regulated train, presumably COVID-19 can still spread on it. Like this what? Like of course it can. That's so ridiculous.
Who's
It's
the
just
writer on this one? Can we scroll up? I like exposing the writers who do this. Tristan Hopper. I like that they like you just said, they went like 25% of the way. We just need them to edge a little bit over that 50% margin, and maybe like, presumably this virus also doesn't choose which type of train it goes on. But presumptions get the best of us sometimes. The other story that Justin Trudeau is making headlines for is he's criticizing Hockey Canada. This might be fair, but I don't think he would do it unless asked. Calls this Hockey Canada fund to cover sexual misconduct claims unacceptable. I mean, he may think that it's unacceptable, but the reality is that so many huge organizations have this. The NFL has so many domestic violence cases that they have to use like legal funding to cover, not even cover up, just to fight in court, to fight out of the papers. I mean, this is a standard thing, and I'm not defending the practice that there might or might not be sexual harassment or assault cases in Hockey Canada, but to point out that a large body of a company should not be allowed to have money put away to cover up bad PR is almost like saying like Justin Trudeau isn't allowed to run away from cameras. He's not allowed to run away from you. He's not allowed to stop Drea Humphrey from asking him questions. I mean, Justin Trudeau has fought off blackface, not even accusations, stories. He's taken, rides on helicopters he's not supposed to take rides on. He's shoved a woman. He's got the stuff from when he was schooling, where he may or may not have been involved in stuff there. He's got so many things that he's allowed to use lawyer money and have funds for put aside to cover up or to get out of the press, or however you want to word it, battle in court. But other companies aren't allowed. So it's almost like Donald Trump coming out and being like, Joe Biden shouldn't be putting money towards a TV show or a board game or anything. Like, you can't just criticize
yeah.
people's stuff that you do yourself. And I get that it's ugly and that people don't want to think that companies do this. But look at like USA Gymnastics. I bet you they have some money put aside at this point for sexual harassment claims.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just whole thing seems like it's a little bit of a non-issue. Like, wouldn't every governing sports body have a legal fund for contingencies that are not insurable? Because I don't think
Of
this is the way
course.
this is worded. It tells me it's not a specific, hey, in case there's sexual assault claim, this is the legal fund specifically for sexual assault. No, it just says for the things that aren't covered by insurance. So isn't that completely understandable for any like governing sports body or any institution anyways? It just seems like Trudeau is like, hey, look over here, look at me, hockey, doing something, insert wokeism into hockey, barbaric sport that is polarizing between,
Mm-hmm.
national pride, blah, 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 yada, yada. Yeah, this seems like a perfect photo op. For him to even insert words like, I think it's hard now for anyone in Canada to have faith or trust in it. Like, shut up about faith and trust. What do you know about faith and trust? Like,
That's true.
seriously, I'm not like, that's just ridiculous. Like, you lost me, bro. You lost me at faith and trust. Proceed all the rhetoric to follow that statement. Like, I couldn't care less about what he had to say about faith and trust. And it's unfortunate that, I'm not saying that what's happening, especially considering the juniors, is acceptable or tolerable or something that we shouldn't look into fixing. But I don't know if that has anything to do with like a legal fund that's set aside for any sort of, incidentals. Like, it seems It just seems to me like another way for the federal government to insert themselves into things that it doesn't need to insert themselves into, especially by creating this. It talks about there's a new minister or something, a sports integrity commissioner. So I got to imagine that's a six-figure position now that's been
Right.
created to oversee the third-party audit. That's also going to cost six figures to now see if Hockey Canada is allocating its money properly, which, you know,
Which will
whatever.
eventually involve diversity, equity, and inclusion
Yeah, exactly.
budgets. And you hit the nail on the head there. And at times like these, I wish we had Rebel News' Dakota Christensen on, speakerphone to do the Trudeau impression. But I think you're completely right. Hockey, something they've been trying to, tear down as this mostly white, barbaric sport that, symbolizes Canada in a way we don't really like it because, like other sports, it has a predominant ethnicity that most of the players are, and it's usually white guys in hockey, and they have to find some way, and by they I mean far left progressives have to find some way to find a problem with it because there isn't really that many problems with it. They've had a couple problems with racism in minor hockey, and that happens in every sport, especially soccer. That happens, racism happens, but it happens in every sport. But there's not this like huge hammer that comes down. They're not as politically active as the NBA. They don't have like end racism on the back of their helmets like the NFL. They did the whole BLM thing, and they had like two guys kneel in hockey, um, and that lost a lot of fans. I think their campaign there. And the thing is, Matt, and I'm sure you know that hockey players conduct themselves very strictly. They're always in suits. They're always just, like, well, we just got to hit them harder next time. We got to play two-way hockey. They're very vanilla in their answers, and they don't give much to complain about by way of press. But the Canadian sports press, is there to try to make a problem out of things like they've always done. Remember going back to the Sean Avery days, shout out Sean Avery. They really hammered him and Dion Phaneuf and involving his girlfriend and all this stuff. And they're always on them looking for the controversy every day. And I think the Canadian press, headed up by CBC, who works for Justin Trudeau currently, is looking for that place to, wedge themselves in. And as you said, now we're making more bureaucracy out of it, and they need oversight. And now we know, as with any institution, including city councils in my home region here in Ontario, we've got to create a diversity board, and we've got to create, all these activities that show how diverse and inclusive we are. And usually, Matt, they end up being, failures, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. There's a famous one here, I think. Maybe the producers can look this up. There was a scavenger hunt, I think, in Whitby, a diversity scavenger hunt that ended up sounding very racist. And I don't want to misstate anything because these are people's names attached to this. But if we can find that, I know that happened. There's also a very famous wall poster, which is from Whitby, Ontario, Canada, where I think it's as long as 5 or 6 years ago, where they had the longest acronym for, LGBTQPLI plus AAP. That was from a Whitby Teachers Association. So right around where I live in the Durham region in Ontario here, there's so much of that. They try to force it into city councils, school boards, and everything. And I think it's just inevitable at this point in Canada as a whole and in left-leaning states in the U.S. I don't know how you feel about that, if you want to move on.
Yeah, I agree, and I think even furthermore, it's just classic Marxist deflection by the government. Oh, there's all-time distrust in institutions, so let's cast distrust on an institution so we can look like we agree with. But, that's just Trudeau being Trudeau. If I these days overthink anything that he's doing beyond, hey, this is just a photo op because he thinks, it's going to give him a bump in the polls. And COVID has already proven that our politicians literally make policy based on public polling from institutions which they pay for to do the polling. It's just this big human centipede thing that's happening in Canadian politics. Man, my head would explode. So I think this is just Trudeau being Trudeau, to be honest.
Matt Brevner watching Human Centipede on loop from 3 to 6 a.m. every night, you guys. Our friend and my big brother, Andrew Lawton, over at True North. Yeah, laugh it up, Matt. He released a book. It's in my house currently. I wish I could jump over all the tables here and go get it quickly for you guys. but he released a Convoy book from his time in Ottawa, I believe. And Indigo says we don't want to sell that. Can we pull that up? So probably, I'm not sure, one of the biggest chains definitely in the book selling market in Canada. Indigo refused to put best-selling Freedom Convoy book on its shelves. Now it's a palatable book. It's not too expensive. I think it's $20. It's flying off the shelves. It's available on Amazon. No matter how you think of them, I'm sure you can buy it through True North as well. But Canadian bookstore giant Indigo is refusing to sell the Freedom Convoy, the inside story of 3 weeks that shook the world, in its stores, despite the book being a bestseller, written by True North journalist Andrew Lawton. The book continues Lawton's reporting. Oh, sorry, combines Lawton's reporting and exclusive interviews with organizers and strives to tell the whole story of what happened in Ottawa during the convoy. Now, Matt Brevner, let's put on our thinking caps and let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Why would they say they don't want to sell this in their stores?
Well, I think this is pretty on brand for Indigo. If you think back to the beginning of the pandemic in BC, they had a Paralympian with no arms forcibly removed from one of their locations because she could not wear a mask. She literally could not wear a mask on her face, so they forcibly removed her. And then later we had also in BC, Indigo, 4 protesters who were arrested and charged with assault for not wearing masks in their. So this is just after a long line of them being against the populist movement in Canada. Let's just say that, put that broadly. But I wonder how many other populist movements or books documenting populist movements in other countries, even contemporarily, that they carry in their store. Like I would be shocked if there are no books on what happened in Egypt 4 or 5 years ago in the space. Like it's just, that's the thing about this like regressive progression, you know, champion causes that we claim to stand for overseas, but then regress them domestically. So I don't know. Indigo sucks.
Well, I'm fairly certain, and please show us if there's a quote in this article from Indigo. But I'm guessing that they would say, you know, it's dangerous rhetoric. Crimes were committed. It was condemned by the federal government. We don't want to support crimes being committed by people, and showing that in a book. And if that's the standard, well, that's insane. Then you can't talk about anything. He's a reporter. He's not, you know, and even if he was just, even if Andrew Lawton was a trucker spewing propaganda that was false about the trucking convoy, you should still allow that to be sold and printed. But I wonder how much this actually happened, you know, let's say pre 2016. Did it happen all the time? You just never heard about it. Let's say if somebody had a book against Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth out there, would it have been published and because nobody really cared back then? Or would it have been silenced and we just didn't hear about it? I'm guessing it would have been put out in their stores because once Trump got into office, as we all know, everybody had to go all systems go because the world was falling apart and we have to take sides now. Everybody from Nike to Coca-Cola to, you know, the racist Disney characters that we're seeing these days at theme parks. Everybody's got to take their sides now, and it's everybody's time to, you know, rise up, as they say, Matt Brevner. Nobody can just, like, whatever happened to these days where it's like, yeah, I'd rather make money than, you know, fight every single little battle. Like, is Andrew Lawton's book going to cause so much political damage to you that you can't sell it? Is the fact that it's
I'm not
available in
sure.
stores?
I'm not sure if it's a reflection of the politics of the board at Indigo or more so a reflection of Canada and the culture that we've created here, right? Because if you look at, for example, like North American, those same industries you just listed, look at their advertisements during June domestically, and then look at them overseas. So maybe, just maybe, you know, Indigo thinks that if they stay on this lefty train, they'll make their bottom line will be better off for it. I
You know,
think, well,
I was
we
gonna
also don't have
say,
alternatives, right?
yeah,
We don't
there's
really
not
have
very
alternative
many book
institutions. Like
chains.
the alternative is Rebel News and is True North and you know and is Western Standard, etc. So you know, I think we would feel the effects of it less if there were larger bastions for free speech within our society. They just don't really exist. So because of that, it feels isolated. I think if a private business wants to run their business based on their politics, I think that's fine. But I think it also is incumbent upon people like us to also create businesses and institutions to give things that we believe in a fair shake.
For sure. And there's been plenty of places like online outlets that have popped up. There's independent publishers. And I learned recently, Matt, that it must be way worse in Canada because there aren't very many publishing houses in the United States anymore because everything's pushed online. So in order to get a book published, you literally have to book a slot as if you're releasing a movie on a Friday. So in order to publish a book in the United States, there's only a few of them left. So if you get cut out by some of these big printing houses, printing presses, then you're probably going to suffer. And that says something about the industry as a whole not making as much money. But if you put that on a micro scale to Canada, because we're about 1/10 the population or somewhat in that regard, or sorry, in that realm of the United States population, there's way fewer options. And that's to the benefit of the government and to whatever ruling ideology there is. I mean, I like to pose this to people because so many people see Donald Trump as the worst person in the world. What if it was, you were in Canada and we had a Trump-esque person in charge and that was the dominating narrative? Would you want a right-wing Indigo or Indigo equivalent to say, we're not going to allow any books by AOC or Bernie Sanders or Jagmeet Singh or anyone like that? Greta Thunberg can't come and sell her book in our stores. Is that the world you want? And, most of them will still say, yeah, but that's not the right thing. We're like truly no introspection about people having other opinions. It's I'm right and let's throw the other people in jail, which is basically what this is. Andrew Lawton's so egregious and the truckers are so egregious that we can't even hear their words. They can't even have their written word be shown to our customers because it's so dangerous. Andrew Lawton says, I'm humbled by how much support there has been for my book. And his book titled The Freedom Convoy. Disappointing that a company I grew up buying books from doesn't think their customers are interested in it. I don't even think that's it. Go ahead, Matt.
No, it's definitely not it. In spirit, I agree with you. Unfortunately, I think we're at an intersection in North America right now where, because I believe there's been a mass fall away from traditional religion by the general population, morality has become conflated with politics, where traditionally people in Canada are mostly center and you're either center right or center left, but now everything's polarized. So yes, I would like to say that, yeah, I would agree with you. I think we should be able to, by my standards anyways, and my understanding, like everyone should have a free platform. Where I draw that line, however, is like I'm opposed to the SOGI program in BC, like the sexual education agenda for young kids. I think that's egregious. However, there are people that are on the left that believe that it's actually dogmatic for them, and they believe that it's right. It has nothing to do with politics, and it's right for them to be able to teach children this way because of it falls in line with the pillars of their religion and the inclusivity, equality, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there needs to be like a shuffling of the deck at this point because we can't even agree on basic concepts like what is a woman, what is a man, what is perverted, what is righteous. Like it's weird the duality that's been created now between these words. And I think this example with Andrew Lawton is just a perfect example of the side effects of that. Despite my personal beliefs and my personal understanding in politics, I think it's terrible what they're doing. However, putting myself in the shoes of that as much as I can for a second, I can see why they think this way. I don't agree with it. I think it's dangerous, but I can see why they think this way.
All right, we've got way more Canadian stuff to come. We're going to take a short break. We've got an art director who's right in line with the diversity and inclusion motif there. And we've got a little bit more Canadian news before we get to the fake handcuffs that rang through the District of Columbia last night. So we'll see you in just a bit to talk about those topics. rebelnews.com/live streams for your daily feed of the greatest live stream in Canada, perhaps nay the Western Hemisphere, with Matt Brevner. You know everything he's done. His music topping the charts. The last song he put out, well, not the last song, he put out another song since then, or two, but your anti-lockdown song also flew off the charts. Did you try to put that anywhere other than online and face any backlash from that? Or was it just all fun and good from our times on YouTube and Spotify and all those other things?
Well, this is the first song I released it through my typical distributor, which sends it out to DSPs, which is a digital streaming platforms. And this is the first song, like, it took over a month to get it on Spotify and Apple, and usually like longer than it should. Usually it's like a 1 week to 2 week window, but this took 6 weeks. So coincidence? I don't know.
No one will ever know Matt Brevner. So there's a Canadian art gallery now. Exactly, right? Unless we get a leak, as they always do in the Supreme Court. Canadian art gallery is hiring, as we mentioned. And, like, Matt, it seems the last 3 weeks I'm just predicting everything that happens. I said, uh, it's always going to end up being a job for diversity and equity and inclusion. Now a Canadian art gallery is set to pay, what was that? An anti-racism and inclusion director up to 123. We'll just type in 123. That's a good number. Scroll down here. Which art gallery is this? The National Gallery of Canada has posted a job ad for an anti-racism and an inclusion director that will pay them between 90.9 and $123,000 per year. Full-time job for an indefinite term. And here's the job description, quote, reporting to the chief strategy and inclusion officer. So there already is a chief strategy and inclusion. How are we going to display our art? But also, how are we going to make our art displays inclusive? Is a job, I guess. The director, anti-racism and inclusion, will lead the development and implementation of the NCC's justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility, short form JEDI and A, which of course was not an accident by whoever made that acronym. Action plan with a focus of anti-racism and anti-oppression practice. So what does this mean, Matt Brevner? What the hell does this mean? You're an art gallery, so are you going to make sure that you focus art? You have art displays that focus on oppression and anti-racism. How about just do that without saying it? How about just include all good art, no matter what category it may lie in? There's tons of art out there from slaves. There's tons of art out there from people who had slaves. There's tons of books out there that were anti-slavery. There's tons of art in every category that's good. Do we really have to pay a person paid by the government, I'm guessing, to seek out more of this stuff? As like, this is literally just injecting this stuff for the sake of injecting it. Because why? Because they always end up wanting $123,000 in a position of power at a major institution. This isn't about, we need more art in these categories, because you could just do that if you really wanted to. The art director could do that. You could hire somebody to put together an exhibit that focuses on that. Art galleries do that, and museums do that all the time. You can go to the ROM in Toronto to find an exhibit for 3 months on one specific thing. No, this is because somebody said, hey, you guys don't have this category working there. This is a place where I can have money and power, and therefore now it must exist, or else you're racist.
Yeah, the art world is extremely political and extremely hierarchical, and how art is valued and assessed is oftentimes based upon the opinions of people like this position that's about to be created. I this is I know more than most people about this industry. However, I am very ignorant about a lot of it too. Like, I do understand that. Well, I would imagine Canada does a pretty good job at including, especially Asian and Indigenous art in our institutions and in our art galleries. There's plenty of initiative for that, and I think that's great. Especially if it's publicly funded space, it should be a representation of the public arts, especially in arts. In something like policing or firefighting or engineering, no, I think that should be whoever's like definitely the most qualified. But if something that's arts and culture, I think the arts should represent the culture broadly, and I think that's great. However, hyper politicizing it with something like this, I don't see how that helps. Like, if people really cared, if the government really cares, why don't they just pump a bunch of money into, disenfranchised communities for art initiatives, and then celebrate the artists that come from these communities? Because ultimately, you know, artists, by the time they show in galleries, they make no money because they have to take all of this time working on commission or just on spec, meaning they're creating things hoping people will buy them. They spend months and months, and let's say you're an artist in Vancouver, you got to spend $4,000 a month for your studio. You got to spend $1,000 a month for your supplies, and then when you finally get a gallery to show your work, they take 50% right off the top. So oftentimes you're just creating art to break even, hoping that these big exhibits, like in these galleries, for example, will get you art or placements or commissions into private collections. So a lot of this is just, fat that's getting trimmed. And I don't really, yeah, it's you nailed it, man. It's just, look at the good job we're doing to help people, but like I don't know if that's actually true or how much help that actually will provide. I mean, my sister, not to make things too personal, but my sister is a very accomplished fine artist. She's showed all over the world multiple times in Vancouver Art Gallery, and she's explained to me that there is some, and because I tend to lean, obviously I lean right, and I'm like, well, everything is even, everything's inclusive. In art specifically, there is a lot of politics, and she's explained to me, as a female, she has a hard time getting gallery placements over some of her male contemporaries, even though she's more qualified, meaning she's sold more, she's got more press, she's got bigger social numbers, et cetera, et cetera. So from my understanding, there is a little bit of obviously nepotism, because in something subjective like art, where value is literally based on opinion, there's bound to be nepotism in that. So I think there could be some reform. I don't know if this is the way, though. I really don't.
Well, on that topic, I remember there was a content creator and a woman named Martina Markota who was, for all that it is, she was like banned from the burlesque scene in New York for being right wing, and like it really infiltrates everything. And I want to expand on one of the points you made about why don't they just give it to people directly. And I think that's the exact point, is they don't want to actually directly help people. You see that a lot now in the United States, where it's, couple billion here, couple billion there for Ukraine. Okay, it's great that you want to help Ukrainian people. I don't agree with the money being sent there, but if you have just $1.4 billion to throw around to another country, where's the $1.4 billion to take the homeless people off the streets? The California's Gavin Newsom talks all the time about how big of an economy California has, but they also have the most homeless population in probably North America. I'm going to guess, I don't know if there's numbers coming out of Mexico and Central America about that, but I'm going to guess California's is higher. And if you have all this money laying around, why don't you put it directly to these people? And I think the answer to that is because we can create bureaucracy out of it, and a never-ending job that is now getting filled for $123,000 a year in this case. And another example I often use for the United States is they don't have free healthcare. Now, not whether or not I agree with that is a different story, but if you just have the money sitting around that you can send to Iran in a pallet of cash like Obama did, or you can send pallets of cash to the Ukraine, or you can give money to the Paris Climate Accord or the WHO or the World Economic Forum, then why can't you just pay for these things? Like, the money is there, whether you agree with it or not is a different story, but the money is there to just directly help people. And if you're blowing all this money in all these other places anyways, why not just give it to the people? Why not take this $123,000 that's going to go into some person's pockets who's just going to be like, well, I have a plan, and it's to be hire only, Northern Ontarian artists of native descent who are also Two-Spirit and who also have also voted for NDP. No, just go and give them, say, hey, here's $20,000 to 12 different artists. Create something that we will show at our government-funded, art galleries across the country, and we will promote you that way, like a bursary. But no, they don't want to do that.
Right.
They want to put somebody in a position
Right.
of power that they probably don't have to leave for a decade.
And for someone to say, oh, well, those things already exist, like the Canadian Arts Council, yeah, they do exist. But have you ever tried to apply for a grant for one of those things? I have. You have to write like a 100-page document. It has to be written by a professional grant writer. So how many artists do you know that are willing or have the resources or even capable to fill out a 100-page legal document so that they can get $5,000 to paint something. Like, it's not going to happen, man. That's
They'll
why it's
probably
the
just put
same.
it on the internet.
Well, exactly, but it's the same institutional artists that are and agencies, writing grant applications on their behalf that are receiving all of this grant money. But the problem with initiatives like this, broadly speaking, I hope that this is different. But the problem with initiatives like this is they're actually better off just burning $123,000. And the reason why I say that, no, they literally are, because the problem of implementing another gatekeeper into something that's subjective as art is dangerous, because now this person is going to completely affect the culture. And as an artist, if you're creating with the how am I going to pay rent in mind, you're going to tailor your work to the marketplace, which in some places is good, in some ways is good, but in some, for like a viable art market. But when the mass of artists are creating with that in mind, the true breakthrough and the revolution and the true creative genius isn't allowed to given an opportunity to break through that, because people just start creating the things that they're supposed to create. So I think initiatives like this are actually harmful to the health of the arts culture in Canada as a whole, and that's I really do think they'd be better off just burning it, to be honest. But it's my 2 cents.
All right, let's move on to Canadian Tire. Some of you may recall that Canadian Tire is one of the most egregious companies in Canada in terms of masking. There's people being assaulted by their security staff in some places, quote unquote, alleged, unalleged. They were plenty of videos we got sent. I made a video about it, I think last year, or in 2020, about how many people emailed us with video and complaints about being kicked out of Canadian Tire for not wearing a mask, or being verbally abused, and in some cases assaulted at Canadian Tire. So take this with a grain of sympathy, salt, when you hear this story, because there's a boycott Canadian Tire going around. No, don't boycott them when they're taking away your civil rights as a Canadian, but boycott them for maybe, possibly, but probably not supporting a shooting range. People are, and BlogTO is we know, one of their lead editors admitted on the Dave Portnoy show that they make titles and they make articles simply for rage clicks. They said rage click sells. So that's what you can also look forward to for any BlogTO article, knowing that they openly and purposely write things just to get you to click on them, which of course everybody does, but they don't care about the content of the story. They care about getting you to click on it through your rage, and they don't care who it hurts. So back to the story, please, from BlogTO. Stay in the loop with the BlogTO newsletter. I'm going to say no. What was the title there again?
People are now boycotting
Canadian
for
Tire,
something it's done for decades,
which is sell guns. So what ended up happening here is somebody was promoting a women's shooting gallery or a shooting event. Can we scroll down there? Let's go right to the, I don't care what this person says. Let's go right to the article there. And let's click on that image, please. No, up. Yeah, this image. Let's blow that up, because the BlogTO writer just wants you to get enraged. So let's go right to the source. Whoa, hey, Canadian Tire, care to comment? So Guns and Heels, a women's shooting event in where, on the East Coast somewhere. And they have put a Canadian Tire logo on it. This person, made a circle, then drew over their circle for an arrow. Maybe undo and then retry the drawing on there, but I digress, as Efron would say. So they put the Canadian Tire logo on there. Now, Canadian Tire is not necessarily associated with this event, or are they? Let's go back to the article now. Let's get some of the facts here, Matt Brevner. I don't know if you saw that, but people are outraged, at least a few, just saying Canadian Tire can't be promoting this culture. They can't be promoting guns and outdoorsmanship to women, even though, as you know, some Walmart sell. I worked at a Walmart. Little, teenage Andrew says worked at a Walmart where they sold ammunition and guns. Canadian Tires do it, I believe, in some regions. So yeah. This is outrageous now, or something, Matt Brevner, that they may or may not support a women's shooting event.
Well, I think there's two things. This is very telling. Firstly, this guy thinks that Canadian Tire only sells like Tefal air fryers and bleach. Clearly, like he's never been into a Canadian Tire outside of Vancouver and Toronto.
Car batteries, what is this?
Oh, whoa, really? And secondly, which I think is hilarious, is like it's a photo of three old ladies for their shooting. There's nothing more anti-patriarchy than armed women who know how to use guns. So I mean,
We
like,
can't have these women
I don't.
hunting for their own food. We can't have them defending themselves. Can't defend yourself
But
with a weapon in Canada, which was an interesting thing. And one of our politicians said, even though that happened within the last couple of years in Calgary. But continue, Matthew.
I think it's pretty reckless though, because I mean, this tweet has what 924 likes. So that's enough of a story then for BlogTO to megaphone
Yes.
it. Like, come on,
Yes.
guys. Like, you want to
I
talk
was
about
talking about
journalistic
the
integrity?
Well, I was talking about this thing that New York Post did. And you know how New York Post is now one of those places, they're like Daily Mail. They'll take any story, really. They famously broke the Hunter Biden laptop story. But they did this thing where they found, five bigger women wearing Hooters outfits as costumes to a party. And this account had 4,000 followers. So they reached out to this woman and they made this whole story about, do you think Hooters should have hire bigger women? And she was like, well, this was a costume that we were wearing, but yeah, I wouldn't mind. And then they turn into this other story where this TikToker or whatever she is saying Hooters should have bigger women working at their stores. And they've kind of just manufactured their story. And the article, the sources they use in their article, just like BlogTO is here, is like a person on Twitter said, "I'd love to see more people, more bigger women." Yeah, this is the story I'm talking about. They use like random tweets from people, and that's something you only do as a writer when you don't have any news articles or big accounts agreeing with you. You will literally go and find a random person who says something that you want to promote or downplay or downvote, basically like what you're saying they're doing here in BlogTO. And they're saying, oh, this person has 900 likes now, probably mostly from our article. Let's blow this up because we hate you know well, we know what BlogTO is doing. They want to make you angry and they want to make you click on it. Whereas me, Matt Brevner, I don't want to make you angry. I want to make you joyful. I can't lie anymore. I just want you to watch me. That's all I want.
But this that example you just shared is the journalistic equivalent of yelling fire in a movie theater. I think, like, to be honest.
Well, it's
But I mean,
really,
so
really
basically,
fishing for a story.
the story here is not, it's not the headline. It's not people are now boycotting Canadian Tire over something that's done for decades. The headline here should be Ryan Lindley at Ryan Lindley is an idiot and has never been to Canadian Tire before. That's the story. And 1,000 people retweeted it. 1,000 other people are also idiots and have not been to Canadian Tire. That's the story. Sorry, but come on, man.
Written by Matt Brevner tonight. Let's get to some paid chats here, and then we'll get to the United States in a bit. I think we've had enough of Canada for the day. Adam Ottawa says all federal departments and agencies are getting these expensive inclusion coordinators. Would be good to see Sheila get some info and a report on how much it's costing us. Well, at least $120,000 for that one. I'm sure you can just look up. In Ontario, there's a thing called a sunshine list. Anybody who makes over $100,000 and is paid by the government, mostly teachers, get put on that list. So if it's a public job, then their salary is available for you to review. That was one of the things when Patrick Brown was blaming Rebel News and saying that we, are helping the Pierre Poilievre campaign. And then one of his executive assistants said that I was being paid by Pierre Poilievre. And then in order to verify if he actually worked for Patrick Brown, all you have to do is go on, the city's website and see that he's there and all their he's spending most of his government dollars on travel by car. So anything that's a public job there, you can find online for free. What else we got?
Got Adam Ottawa also. Isn't the artist community typically the most inclusive and diverse community around by default? Do they really want inclusion or do they want more indoctrination? Well, yeah, I think the thing is art you have to understand is just a reflection of society as a whole. It's not like another institution, although the Canadian government is trying to, make a bureaucracy out of the arts. Art typically is just a reflection of what's happening in the world. So I would say, I mean, the art community is the most inclusive community, and I don't mean inclusive by political lingo. I mean literally. It's just an amalgam of whoever wants to create art. Well, that's whoever wants to express themselves. That is the artist community. So, yeah, I think the government's play and meddling in this is more about indoctrination and inclusivity, to be honest. But I think art traditionally is by default the most inclusive because it's just a reflection of what average people think and what they're willing, how they express themselves, right?
A big TBH from Matt Brevner. We got a few more here. G Melinda G60. Okay, just came on my Roku TV Rumble channel. 24 minutes in with what I assume is a kiss emoji. Somebody troubleshooting with us live. I believe she also said the thumbnail is listed on Rumble. Says it's live, but it's not playing today. Had to find you on my Telegram. Again, bless you for sharing that with us. Thank you for watching. I think there's one more. At least. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, from King7734. Trudeau was not wearing a mask on the train. Guess he wanted to get some of that steamer in his mouth. I don't know what that means, but
so graphically vague. Like it's like it's supposed to be like coarse, but you're not sure exactly what he means. No comment from Matt. He's too nice of a guy. All right. Okay, let's go to on the other side of this. We're gonna check out AOC and Ilhan Omar pretending to be handcuffed, and we're gonna get to our American stories. But we have a new piece coming out. I believe Matt Brevner is probably involved with this. Tell me if I'm wrong, Matt. You want to cue this up? A new trailer from you guys?
Sure, yeah. So Dre and I went up to Kamloops Indian Residential School initially last summer to cover the announcement of the 215 bodies discovered in the mass grave, which subsequently led to all of the church vandalism and that narrative underpinned our federal election, et cetera, et cetera. And a year later, we realized there hasn't been much revelation or discovery to substantiate the claim. So we went back up there to sniff around a little bit, and we ended up shooting a full-length feature documentary. So this is the trailer for that, and that'll be coming out in the following weeks.
Well, the remains of 215 children have been found in a mass grave in Canada.
Many of you know that just over a year ago, the discovery of the remains of 215 children was found at the Kamloops Indian Residential School at the Kamloops First Nation. But what if I were to show you that what I just said wasn't true, and that in fact, a year later, not a single body has been found?
This mass grave is a painful reminder of the genocide.
Canada's leaders aren't condemning the burning of churches. No, they're endorsing the burning of churches.
A juvenile rib bone that surfaced in the same area.
I think we're having some technical difficulties here. Yeah, we're gonna have to post that online. If we can get that posted on the Rebel News Twitter right now, producer Efron or social media guru Yakov, please do, and we will throw to that at the end if we can, because we've got so many good docs right now. We don't want you to first impressions are everything. Matt Brevner is what I'm trying to get out here.
Agreed.
So we don't want to have a poorly rendered version going out there. It's something with the connection here on Zoom, I imagine. So I'm going to blame China, as we always. It's China. AOC and Ilhan Omar and possibly Ayanna Pressley, I want to say, were multiple members at Congress yesterday. And of course, they're still going ham on the abortion stuff. I think I'm willing to bet that AOC does not understand what the ruling means. And who else did I say? Ayanna Pressley probably does. Ilhan Omar probably does. I think they're smarter than AOC, but AOC is just not a bright girl. She lies a lot about where she's from. She fundamentally misunderstands stuff that she's being told to at congressional hearings. And she was there as part of a protest. And if we can get some of the video, here's the photo that a lot of the leftist media ran with, was her with her hands behind her back from a straight on angle. But what her and Ilhan Omar did is they just, when they're being escorted, they just put their hands behind their back as if they were in handcuffs. And you don't usually just do that. Like, if you're being escorted out of somewhere, ask David Menzies. You don't just put your hands behind your back for no reason. You do if you're about to be cuffed and you're cooperating, but you don't just walk around with your hands behind your back when you're being escorted out by police. They sort of just like walk with you and at worst grab your arm. But I think it's fairly obvious that they did this on purpose, judging by the amount and distance they were walking with just their hands behind their back. Can we show some of that video? See, he's just holding her elbow.
No, she's a member of the House.
No, she's not a member of the House, whoever is saying that. Yeah, he's just got his fingers on her elbow, and she's walking around with her arms behind her back. Matt, she's even doing, as we can see towards the end here, she's doing like a fake waddle as if her arms are detained behind her back. Watch when she starts walking sort of towards the camera. Watch her posture of her legs here as she sort of starts walking side to side, like there, right there.
Yeah, it's like she's in the chain gang or something.
Yeah, she's either got an extreme wedgie from the policeman or she's pretending she's handcuffed. Did we find out, producers, if they were among the people who were actually arrested, or were they just detained and escorted off the property? Did we find that? Because I know the DC police said that they had arrested protesters, some of which were congressional members. What that specifically means, I wasn't sure. Did we find the article on that, or can we pull that up? Matt, why do you think they would do this?
Well, it's a great photo opportunity. If you look at this, how much attention just this tweet is getting. It's dangerous when people in power purposely stoke and fan the flames of misinformation to rile up and enrage their base. And that may work for the short term, but eventually that fire becomes too big and it engulfs, the very institutions that fan them. I have a hard time believing, even if AOC doesn't understand what Roe v. Wade means, her advisors do, or her colleagues do, and it's a dangerous game that our progressive, the Western progressive politicians are playing right now, literally pulling out the founding pillars of society and expecting it to stand still. Like, I don't know. This is just more of that, more political theater.
Okay.
It would be nice to hear what the truth is, though, because I thought this tweet was a little bit confusing to me. She fakes being handcuffed after being arrested. Well, was she arrested or not arrested? Because usually when you're arrested, you're handcuffed, right?
Yes, so they probably aren't going to handcuff a sitting congresswoman, but it says apparently she is among 17 people who were actually arrested. At least 17 U.S. lawmakers arrested abortion rights protests. Of course, Ilhan Omar, she's Somalian, the very Muslim country. They wouldn't be protesting against or in favor of abortions in her country. She wouldn't be either. I know you say, Andrew, how can you know that? You got to just trust me on that one. She's not an honest person. She comes from a place where she doesn't want to live. That's why she's in America. And Somalia has terrible, terrible things going on there. I feel sorry for the people. They have I think the leader in female genital mutilation, where they sew up women's private parts and they cut off all their parts. I don't know how graphic we can be on YouTube, but these are just people lying out there, and they go to this protest knowing that they're going to be committing a crime. They're going to be told that. That's why they're pretending that their hands are in handcuffs, because they know they're going to be escorted out. The police probably told them that if you do this, we're going to have to arrest you. We have any choice. And then they fake handcuffs, all those so that they can say, hey, look, we are fighting for it. So they didn't go and give any speech or anything. AOC usually does a yelling thing. She throws a black power fist in the air because she thinks she's from the hood, which we all know. And she's a pretend activist. She makes plenty of money. She's not from a bad place. She's a former bartender. She was auditioned for her role to be put in a campaign for an election in her district. She didn't always go as AOC, her full name. She went by Sandy. All these other things. She's from the same place as Michael Knowles. Very privileged background. And just like I'm saying about Ilhan Omar, who may or may not have married her brother to bring him into the country, they have very privileged lives, and they fly over there and they say, well, I'm going to show up and fake being arrested and fake being handcuffed, I should say, for the day, and then go back home. And I've done my part, and that way people will see I'm really fighting for them. But AOC's not about to say, hey, let's have some actual discussions about Roe v. Wade. She's not about to say, let's have some discussions about abortion rights. She's going to go back to her congressional office, being a congresswoman from a state where there are no virtually any abortion restrictions. You can have it right up to the moment of birth in the state of New York. So what she's doing is meaningless. It's to convince 16 through 25-year-old progressives who don't know any better that she's really fighting for us. Meanwhile, she couldn't pass a single bill if her life depended on it. We saw what happened with the Green New Deal. It failed miserably. So now they're forcing that through. That's another story. But these are fake people who have gotten into their positions solely for the power and money that comes with it. AOC can go on Instagram Live and cook and drunkenly misinterpret the law as much as she wants. That doesn't matter to her. What matters to her is the number in the corner of the screen of how many people want to view her. That's fine, but probably not fine if you're a congresswoman.
Well, if we learned anything from the Red Revolution, the 16 to 25-year-old misinformed are the most dangerous. So she's literally riling up this, stoking up this base. It's terrifying, honestly. Like it's all fun and games. We can laugh about it right now. But I will say, at least she, is an American politician. She's going to speak on American politics as an American politician. That's great. The tone deafness of our prime minister, disavowing the Roe v. Wade overturning from Rwanda. This guy has the audacity to speak about our closest ally, our big brother militarily, when we're literally at war, or just about at war in Europe. But at war by proxy anyways, to say that 1/3 of the institution, which is our big brother militarily, is abhorrent and, disdainful and whatever. Well, in a country that is very aggressively against abortion and never mind abortion, just equal rights generally. And I mean, real equal rights, not this pseudo left equal rights thing that we've created. That is reckless abandon. That is terrifying. And I don't think we should let that slide, honestly.
You see that tweet from verified Twitterer Efron Monsanto, bless him. All right, we're almost out of time here. I don't think we have any more paid chats. Get them in right at the end. Oh no, wait, we have a few more. It looks like I've lied to you guys. Let's go ahead and do those. Dun, 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 dun. I have to give them a second, Matt. I'm being too pushy here. I want to also play for you guys before we leave, or maybe we won't have time, but Russell Brand's talking about the Great Reset. And I feel almost proud of Russell Brand for how far he's come. If you look back like 7 years ago or 6 years ago, he's on BBC being like, I don't know what the solution is, but with terrible Russell Brand accent, a little bit more harder on that accent. I should ask Lewis, but he said, I don't know what the solution is, but it's some sort of socialism. And now he basically talks about the Great Reset, and I thought he was spot on. And I think we'll be able to play that. But I want to make sure we have time for, there we go. Yeah, let's play a couple minutes of this. Then we'll get to the paid chats and say goodbye. Go ahead and click play, please.
Protesting, hating the environment. What is it? Are farmers all bastards? Or are we seeing the beginning of the Great Reset play out in real time? And to check whether or not that's a reality or a conspiracy theory, because we can never be sure, let's check what Klaus Schwab, the inventor of the Great Reset, which is something that he says himself, said in 2020.
We have to prepare for a more angry world.
Why? Why have we got to prepare for a more angry world? What's going to happen, Klaus? That's going to make the world more angry. We shouldn't be preparing for that. We should be trying to prevent it. We should be thinking about ways to share resources, empower ordinary people, coming to terms with the fact that some people identify in very progressive ways, some people identify in traditional ways, that the globalist culture is being rejected by everybody, that people are feeling disempowered, that no one trusts the agenda of these globalists, that when they say we're doing this for climate change, they don't believe them, that when they say say we're doing this because we want equality between races or genders or sexualities. Don't believe them. It's all demonstrative. It's all phatic, ersatz trickery to prevent ordinary people getting on with their lives and to further centralise corporate power and to make sure that the state operates essentially as the henchmen for corporate interests.
And how to prepare? It means to take the necessary action.
Necessary action could mean lockdowns. Necessary action could mean that we're going to say to the agricultural industry, you can't use these fertilizers anymore. And that might impact the livelihood of these farmers. And they're probably only using these fertilizers anyway because it's the only effective way to turn a profit with the conditions and stipulations that are placed on their industry as a result of other regulations, probably that have come from the WEF or some other globalist funded body that controls what used to be national or even local
Let's
interests.
pause it there.
These kind of things come at a cost.
Let's pause it there. Russell Brand is a guy who's well off, who decided, I'm going to start doing videos from my own home studio about things that the governments all across the world are going to start hating me for. And I don't think I've ever heard a clip from him like that where he was so on the nose and so accurate about what's going on right now. And I just wanted to mention that, and I just wanted to throw that in there because he's come a long way, and not that he owes me anything, but he's come a long way where I felt like I really didn't agree with him to this point now where I think he's speaking so accurately that it's very good of him to speak to millions of people, I think every single day, despite, Hollywood's not going to work with him. All these people in England probably aren't going to work with him, but he's still saying it anyway. And he's actually being one of these people that you hear about in a mythical land who are giving up their millions upon millions of dollars in fame to what I think is speaking truth to power. And I don't usually say that sort of thing.
Yeah, all I can say after watching that is Russell Brand didn't kill himself.
Black Pill Brevner at it again. All right, let's get to these paid chats and then we'll say goodbye, hopefully, with the documentary trailer. Adam Ottawa says, all federal departments and agencies. We saw this one already. But bless you, Adam Ottawa. Bless you very hard. Whatever that means. January 777 says Trudeau flew flags at half-mast for 6 months over the Kamloops graves that never existed. Another colossal Trudeau failure and counting. Not just Trudeau, but every province did that for an extreme and unnecessary amount of time.
Yeah,
I guess we'll have to watch to find out, Matt.
I don't think that's something that we try to scratch on in this documentary. I don't think we really can begin to understand the cultural ramifications of this international news debacle yet, because just think back to the time of during the elections and how much this literally framed our whole election debates. In the middle of a tanking economy and a pandemic, we spent more time talking about this subject, which is, than anything else, which should worry us. We need a refund, I think.
Press that coin return button, for better or for worse. I was in a hospital lately and they had one of those coin machines and it didn't work. The vending machine didn't work. I was outraged. I wanted a lemonade. I think we have one more. Go ahead, Matt.
Wow, what fast delivery of my Trudeau / Castro eye shirt. Oh, sorry, that's
T-shirt.
Right.
My eye shirt?
My eye shirt. I'm like, ooh, that's a new one.
I think that's sleeveless.
Right. I'm going to wear it to the rally for Cara McMinn at Hamilton City Hall at 4:00. She is crossing Canada on her bike. That's great. Thank you, Fraser McBurney. I appreciate that.
This is some clout stealing. The guy who already walked across Canada, now we're biking across Canada. And we've also seen that one. If it's happening in Hamilton, producer Efron will be there, I think, with bells on. He literally wears bells, wears a jacket with frills, rhinestones, and bells. So he's jingling across the place to get his ticket from bylaw for shaking hands and for filming, I think.
Yeah, he owns that town, so I'm looking forward to see what comes of that.
He gonna run this town tonight. He just listens to that on loop. I think we're out of time here, producers Efron and Olivia. Thank you so much for everything. rebelnews.com/live streams is the best place to get our daily feed on Rumble, Odyssey, or YouTube. And I think we're even live on Getter most of the time. Matt Brevner of Matt Brevner's YouTube channel and rebelnews.com. I am Andrew of Andrew Says. My new show tomorrow night is with the YouTuber Danny Mullen. I can't thank you guys enough for joining me from my home studio where my back has betrayed me. I love you all. I miss you, Matt Brevner. Let us throw to this new trailer, rebelnewsplus.com documentary. We have so many good ones on there. We have so many good shows, like Andrew says, but mainly the documentaries and the Ezra Levant show. And we want you guys to sign up at rebelnewsplus.com. We will see you probably next week.
Well, the remains of 215 children have been found in a mass grave in Canada.
Many of you know that just over a year ago, the discovery of the remains of 215 children was found at the Kamloops Indian Residential School at the Tecumseh First Nation. But what if I were to show you that what I just said wasn't true, and that in fact, a year later, not a single body has been found?
This mass grave is a painful reminder of the genocide.
Canada's leaders aren't condemning the burning of churches. No, they're endorsing the burning of churches.
A juvenile rib bone that surfaced in the same area.
You'd be surprised the number of people who say, you know, I'm a doctor, I'm a paramedic, and this is definitely a human bone, and it's definitely not.
Looks like the chief.
It is.